Steel Plaza. Please stand clear of the doors.
Right back here on another special episode of the Steel Plaza podcast, Pittsburgh, the music scene. How did we get here? And in the last episode, we talked a lot about the venues and the venues that no longer exist. In this episode, we're going to discuss a little bit about the evolution of the scene and how it came to be that way. And joining us once again is Chip Dominick from Chip and the Charge Ups. Chip, your thoughts?
Cool. Well, thanks for having me on, Adam. You know, in the last episode, we talked about how bleak things were, just like 10 years ago. And where things started to change, in my opinion, like the catalyst for things changing was the emergence of local music festivals. And it, as far as I know, it kind of started off with the Rock All Night Tour, which was also known as Rant.
Right.
A festival that just took place over one day. A couple dozen venues, a couple dozen bands in Lawrenceville. And it turned out to be a brilliant idea. I mean, the organizers came up with this idea, and it was kind of like, build it and they will come. And the people came out, and they really enjoyed the live music.
Now, was that Mary Jo Cole?
Yeah, she was one of them.
Okay.
She was one of the organizers. Over a couple of years, they built that to be like a 150 band event, and it was just awesome. And I think it really opened a lot of people's eyes to local music, and having it in the communities, or specifically in the community of Lawrenceville, it was like you're taking the music to the people, and the people liked it, and people started noticing that was successful. And then there was the Strip District Music Festival, which kind of operated on a similar model. The venues were a little bit bigger. They had like Altar Bar at the time, R.I.P. Altar Bar, but
right.
one
There's been so many different venues.
Yeah, like one of the iconic venues of recent memory. Certainly one with a great sound system, just a great vibe to it. Was kind of like the hub of that festival, and kind of took that experience to a little bit more professional level. And, I think that was held in like January, and then 10,000 Pittsburghers were coming out on a cold January night and just bopping from venue to venue, taking in live music. And that kind of proved like, hey, this is kind of a good business model. Like, Rant was great, but it wasn't a fluke. So then shortly after that, the Millvale Music Festival and the Deutschtown Music Festival started happening. And then with Deutschtown, the organizers of that were just some of the most determined people you can imagine. And they made that huge. I mean, this past year, Deutschtown, I think, had around 400 bands scattered among 40 plus venues.
I think Hugh Timon took that over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great guy.
Yep. And from that, it grew to the point where radio could no longer ignore it. TV could no longer ignore it. Sports teams could no longer ignore, the impact that local music had on the Pittsburgh culture. And of course, if you're getting that many people to an event, what's going to follow? Advertisers. And you look at Deutschtown's advertisers, I mean, they have some big names. I don't know how much money those big names are pouring into the festival, but I'm guessing it's probably pretty significant. Just to have the infrastructure that Deutschtown has, with all those venues, all those stages, all those sound systems, all the advertising, and everything that Deutschtown has to offer.
Right, and all those small town local businesses just making a killing in that weekend, so it helps the local economy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's where the turning point was. I'm not sure when Rant started. I'm going to guess maybe 2011, 2012. Probably at the bottom of the curve for how well Pittsburgh music was doing. And that turned things around. And every year since then, Pittsburgh music has gotten better. I think there's now a higher standard for artists, and the musicians that you see on a stage sound better than ever. It's larger. More people are packing venues. I mean, almost every show I go to, every show I play is packed with people. And, and it's just on such a roll. The feedback from the fans is so positive about everyone that they're seeing. So I think the festivals have a lot of credit to be given for their role in turning things around. And like I said, because of that snowball getting rolling, radio has gotten on board, television has gotten on board, sports teams have gotten on board,
right.
The news weeklies have gotten on
right.
board, and podcasts like this have continued sprouting up, touting the beauty of what we have here in Pittsburgh.
Right, absolutely, and you did talk a little bit about that. Mainstream radio, we're like, well, we have to talk about this because now it's overwhelming the community. Mm-hmm. Now we're at a tipping point where we have to have these bands on, the morning show. And we have to talk to the bands. We have to do this and we have to do that. And that's outside of what they're supposed to do. So they actually went back and they pushed back and they said, we need these local bands on the morning shows in order to promote this because there's so much advertisement invested in this right now.
Yeah, great point.
And another thing, and then the opposite side of it, is a lot of the local residents, and this is kind of a funny thing, had no idea it was happening because a lot of people that live in the area, maybe they're not music fans, maybe they're, whatever they are. But they didn't know it was happening. And now their street's closed off, and they have no idea. And now they're calling the cops because it's too loud and they can't sleep, and they're, shift workers and things like that. So you run into some problems with the festivals, but other than that, it seems like a success to me.
Yeah, for sure. And it seems like, from my observations, is that the organizers of the festivals don't just show up, set up stages and porta-johns on people's stoops without communication in the beginning. And I think they let the residents know, what they're going to do, and know that they appreciate the residents being flexible for that one weekend of the year.
I think a lot of them that are so opposed, they know it's happening. They don't like it, so they pretend they don't. We played, the Wire-Rights played, I think it was Deutschtown. Yeah, it was Deutschtown at the St. James Speakeasy before it closed. Is that what it was called, the St. James?
I don't recall that place.
It was either, it was the Millvale Music Festival. Well, either way. So we played at that place, and we played in the basement, and they shut us down because we were so loud, according to a resident. And so it's sort of like, we were the last band of the night, so it didn't matter. So, they shut it down, and it was like, oh, okay, well, we were done anyway. So, Get some rest. I hope you feel better in the morning. So, sometimes things like that would happen. But that's few and far between. I can't I wish I remembered what the name of it was. I'll have to get back to the audience later on that in a footnote, but I can't remember. But anyway, some of the festivals that you've played at, can you tell me about it?
Sure. And a couple of them we mentioned. Deutschtown is always a blast. This year was a lot of fun. We were on the Skyline stage, and the Skyline stage is awesome. You have the downtown skyscrapers in the background as you're playing. Huge stage, and we got to be out there in the public with a lot of the foot traffic. So that was a lot of fun. We played Millvale Music Festival. Actually, Millvale Music Festival 2018 was Chip and the Charge Up's debut performance. So that'll always have a special place in our heart for that one. My previous band played Rant as well. Another place that I played in a previous project was the Band Jam, which is a festival put on by 97.7 FM, the rock station, and that was a lot of fun too. That's another great radio station that actually may give Pittsburgh music the most spins out of all of the radio stations. So
I agree.
Yeah. So we love playing festivals. We view festivals as an opportunity to really grow our fan base. When you play club shows, generally you're recruiting your existing fan base to come to those. And of course, people get hear the buzz, and the friends bring friends and things like that. But the festival is just kind of like, you're in a fishbowl waiting to get discovered.
I agree. And all the festivals that we've played the Rant, the Rock All Night, we've played the Deutschtown Music Festival, veterans of it. What's nice about that is you really don't have to tell anybody to go because they're already going. Mm-hmm. They're already going to be there. And you get fans that night that you're playing that have never seen you before because they're just walking from venue to venue. Mm-hmm. And they say, "Who was that band?" And then somebody tells them, they look you up. Now they're a fan. That's the beauty of festivals for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Right.
Plus, it's always fun to play outside as well. I mean, that's just kind of an awesome thing. I mean, we talked about years back, and the only opportunities to play in many cases were in clubs, and unfortunately, many times 21 and over clubs, because a few years ago there were almost no venues that would do all ages shows. That weren't prohibitively expensive. So now, it's kind of a new experience being able to play outside several times a year.
There's one experience that I could say that I did not enjoy playing outside, and we were playing a show, and it was some type of benefit for something or other, and we were playing in Munhall underneath a bridge in the middle of winter, and it was... The guitars were creating their own tunings. It was so cold. I kept getting shocked by the microphone. It was a terrible experience, but the crowd loved it because they thought we were putting on a gag, and they thought we were doing some sort of punk rock thing, and we weren't. It was just we couldn't play our instruments because it was so cold outside.
Yeah, the hands don't work well under 40 degrees.
And they're like, "Man, these guys are really artistic, man. I like what they're doing." It's like they just sort of do whatever. It's like they have the record, but it's like they're just changing it, man. They're just changing it for us. It's way better live. You got to see these guys live, man. So, and then all the people that saw that show, when they went to the next show, they didn't see that, and they were disappointed because our instruments were in tune. So, thus is life playing outside in cold weather. So, anyway. When we come back, we'll have more of the history, more of the changing, more of what's going right, more of what's going wrong. Right back after this.
You are the volcano, and I'm the first one to get burned. Tell me, what have you learned? Tell me, what have you learned? I am the truth seeker. Now just tell me what you know. Tell me, where did you go? Tell me, where did you go? And all the sanity and romances in your mind will now shatter down, eyes upon your spine. I am the fire, and I will burn out every tongue. Tell me, what have you won? Tell me, what have you won? I am the darkness. I start at 10, then I go to 1.